Hello again, and welcome to Pick Yourself, the podcast that helps you build a meaningful electronic music career. If your goal is to create and release outstanding music on respected labels, get better bookings, and grow a tribe of true fans instead of just social followers, then this show is for you. My name is Philip, thanks for tuning in, and now let's get right into today's episode. Welcome to episode 33 of Pick Yourself. I'm super happy to have you here with me again every single week. Thanks for tuning in. Well, this show is now coming out in the middle of the Corona/COVID-19 crisis, and it's a very strange situation for artists all around the world and the music industry in general. Now, I have decided to not talk too much about that stuff anymore because I think it's important to also have some balance in your day, to have some distraction, have some positivity, and also learn a lot. I think this is a really good time to learn new stuff, and this is what this podcast is all about. So I will try to produce as much helpful stuff as possible for you in the next weeks. And most importantly, I will also do some special events in our Facebook community. So you can go to pickyourselfpodcast.com/community. That will forward you to our private Facebook group of podcast listeners. And I will do some live events. I will do some Q&As in the next couple of weeks. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to enter some questions, then go to pickyourselfpodcast.com/community, and I will organize this live event for you. That being said, doing this live event, like a Q&A session or Ask Me Anything, makes only sense if enough of you contribute with questions. So you need to share your struggles with me. You need to share your specific pain points in your artist career right now with me. So head over to pickyourselfpodcast.com/community and contribute to the questions, contribute to our live event. And then I think it's going to be super helpful. And just quickly before we jump into today's topic, if you want to grow your artist career and you need some help with that, you can head over to pickyourselfpodcast.com/free. I have created a guide there that is going to help you tremendously. It's called The 7 Strategies of Highly Successful Electronic Music Artists. And in this guide, I have compiled the strategies that have worked for my most successful studio clients. So this is real world stuff. This is things that I have observed among my studio clients. So head over to pickyourselfpodcast.com/free, get the guide, and this is going to kickstart your artist career in the right direction. All right, now let's jump into today's episode. We are talking about record labels again, and more specifically, we're talking about the question whether record labels are still relevant or not. So this is a question that I often get. People are observing massive changes in the music industry. So this business has changed dramatically, even in the last 5 years, not to speak of the last 10 years, 20 years, and so on. And these days, artists have more possibilities than ever before to self-release music. And the question is now, does that mean that labels aren't relevant anymore? Are they not important anymore? And this is something that I want to discuss with you today. So first of all, let's have a look at the role that record labels used to have in the music industry. Record labels used to be the ultimate gatekeepers in our industry. So back when CDs were still a thing and the digitalization of the music industry had not gained momentum yet, record labels were the ultimate gatekeepers. Without a label, you didn't even have a chance to enter the market and get your products onto the shelves of record stores. And yes, there have been some exceptions, of course. So the DIY attitude of some brave underground artists and collectives in various genres, from hardcore punk rock to Detroit and Berlin techno, they managed to sneak small vinyl and later on CD pressings into niche stores and hacked, basically, the record label distribution system, just because they had this independent distribution system of their own. And yet, this was the exception rather than the rule. But why were record labels so important back then? Well, they did not only control the distribution chain to end consumers, they also had the means to pay for studio recordings, which were still really important and really expensive back then, for promotion, for touring. And so back then, all of these things were totally different. You couldn't make a record on a laptop. There was no way to promote your music directly to an audience on social media. And self-organizing a tour was also much more complicated back then in the pre-internet era. And so when you want to discuss the question whether record labels are still relevant today, you have to contrast that a little bit with the situation back then. Back then, they controlled almost everything from the production chain to the distribution chain to the promotion system later on, onto touring. So basically the whole ecosystem of an artist and their releases. And so things have changed quite a lot in the digital era of music production and consumption. These days, record labels have mostly lost their function as gatekeepers because artists can self-produce, self-release, and self-promote their music, and some of them even have had more success with it than many major starlets before. So the empowered artist of today doesn't need to be on a label to be successful, period. But does that make record labels less relevant? I don't think so. Their function as gatekeepers might have vanished, and that's a good thing, I think, but other factors have become more important. So overall, I believe that the role of record labels has changed, but they're still important in a different way. And I want to talk about that now. I will give you 5 reasons why record labels are still important today, and we will talk in detail about each one of them. So number 1, labels provide orientation in an abundance of new releases. So the first and foremost function of record labels these days is to provide orientation. We're being flooded with mediocre self-released music that hits the streaming platforms and social networks, and it's getting harder and harder to find the real gems. And good record labels have carefully selected the artists they work with, and they have helped them become the best version of themselves. Therefore, it's just a filter for really great music. They're offering honest feedback during the production process, they hire the right people for mixing and mastering, they pay talented graphic designers for the right visual look, and so on and so forth. So, all in all, I think that record labels are bullshit filters rather than gatekeepers. A good record label is still a trusted source of great music that helps define a certain genre. So there's a reason why you almost always get a no when you try to get signed to a label. They have to be extremely careful not to hurt their own brand or disappoint their audience. But here's something important. When I talk about good labels or great labels, then I'm referring to the labels that put out 1 or 2 releases a month, like really carefully selected and well-promoted releases. They work with only a very selected group of artists. I don't mean these net labels that pump out music daily, that try to sign anybody and their grandmother just because they want to pump out as many releases as possible and bring them to Spotify platforms and collect the royalties for that. So these are very different business models. So these mass labels, I call them, they are unpersonal. They do like the one-size-fits-all contract with all the people they work with. And it's just a very different business model. So when I talk about labels here, I mean the established, well-branded labels that focus on putting out quality music in a very selected range of styles. So just to sum it up again, labels provide orientation. This is one of the most important functions these days. They are some kind of bullshit filter, and they are a source of trust. And that brings us to the next point. A great label is a brand that people trust, and so they automatically trust you once you get signed to the label. So the big advantage of getting signed to a record label instead of starting your own imprint is that you immediately get in front of the right audience. Good labels have established a very loyal following of true fans. And if you don't know what a true fan is, I have an episode dedicated exactly to that. And these true fans trust in the ability of the label to pick the right artists. And in consequence, they automatically trust your talent and the quality of your music. And if you prove them right, you can quickly grow your audience and your own tribe of true fans. And since the gatekeeper function of record labels is redundant these days, it's more important than ever for them to make sure that their brand is on point. So signing new talent is only one part of the equation. Running a well-branded label these days involves ongoing content creation, for example, clearly recognizable artwork, authentic PR and communication, and even things like high-quality merchandise can play a role. So all of these things help strengthen the bond between a record label and its loyal following. And if you get signed to that type of label, then you automatically benefit from this close bond. Okay, so number one was labels provide orientation. Number two is you get some kind of credit of trust if you get signed to a label, and you automatically grow your following. The next reason why record labels are still important has to do with the limits of today's do-it-yourself artists. Number three here, self-releasing artists often put too much weight on their shoulders. And with that, I mean you can't be good at every aspect of your artist career. Moreover, if you try to do everything on your own, you might end up exhausted, burnt out, overworked, unsatisfied. And guess what suffers most in this case? Your music. And it sounds easy to self-produce and release your music, but once you start diving deeper into these aspects, in these different specific areas, from mastering your tune to distribution and PR and marketing, it becomes overwhelming for most artists. You might find yourself banging your head against the wall and crying, all I wanted was to create music and now I have to deal with a bunch of stuff that I have to do as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of the do-it-yourself attitude. I even think you should do a lot on your own because that helps you grow as an artist, that helps you understand the things, how they are connected. I think it's really important to do a lot on your own. But even with the best time management techniques, you won't be able to do everything on your own, and also you won't be able to do it at the desired level of quality. Yeah. So the good thing about having a record label is that that label has your back. Yeah. A good record label handles many of these aspects. It works like a well-oiled machine. They do this every week, they do this every month. And yes, I think this is one of the reasons why labels are still relevant these days. They have this well-oiled machine that takes off the weight of their artist's shoulders, and it helps them focus on the thing that's most essential, which is producing and creating awesome music and having a good interaction with their fans. And that leads directly to number 4 here. Good record labels offer a well-functioning network of specialists. So one of the biggest benefits of working with an established label is that you get access to their network of experienced professionals. So usually record labels have a team of mixing and mastering engineers that they work with, but also they have a team for PR, they have graphic designers, and you get immediate access to these services. And apart from that, don't underestimate the benefits of getting to know the other artists on the label. This might be a chance for interesting collaborations as well as some remix opportunities, for example. So growing your network this way can pay off massively in the long run because this is a natural way of growing your network. You know, I've done an episode specifically on why I think that networking is bullshit and what you can do instead. With networking here, I mean exactly the thing that I was talking about in the other episode. I was talking about building meaningful, long-term relationships with people that you are really interested in, genuinely interested in. Yeah. And of course, if there are awesome artists on that label, if there are people that you want to see succeed, you can do something to help them, they can do something to support you, and this is going to create a very natural, organic network of specialists, network of great artists that will, in the end, for sure pay off massively. And I mean, who knows? The people running the label might become your mentors in the music industry and support you over the course of your artist career, even if you grow beyond their label, even if you switch labels. They are genuinely interested in seeing you succeed. And this leads us to the last reason why labels are still important today, and I think this is the most important one. A great label helps you grow beyond your limits. So self-releasing on the one hand helps you build important skills that make you very attractive to work with from a music industry perspective. But on the other hand, you might also play it a bit safe sometimes and never truly leave your comfort zone because you don't have to. And a great label owner or A&R manager knows exactly what your true potential is and will push you beyond your self-imposed limits. That's a great chance to grow as an artist and to leave your comfort zone. So there's a reason why famous label owners like, for example, Daniel Miller of Mute Records get mentioned in a lot of biographies of big artists. They have helped them massively, and one could argue that without these visionary label owners, some careers of artists would have taken a very different route. So as an artist, you sometimes just need someone who truly believes in you and expresses this openly. Self-doubt is our constant companion, as creatives. And we can't always fight that demon on our own. And then in these moments, you need someone who believes in you. You need someone who pushes you, who tells you that you're on the right path. And then there are also other times where you might get a little bit arrogant and a little bit too stubborn. And then you need someone to bring you down on your feet again and tells you, like, this is not the way to go. And I think both aspects are really important, and great label owners, great label A&Rs can bring you back on track here. So having a great relationship of trust with the people running your label is a way of protecting yourself from yourself. They will tell you when you're becoming your own worst enemy, but they will also help you find your path and become the best version of yourself as an artist. So just to recap quickly, number 1, labels provide orientation in an abundance of new releases. Number 2, a great record label is a brand that people trust, and so they trust you. Number 3 was self-releasing artists often put too much weight on their shoulders, and labels can take that off. Number 4, good record labels offer a well-functioning network of specialists. And number 5, a great label helps you grow beyond your limits. And so what's the conclusion here? I think that record labels are not a relic of the past. I think more than ever before, we need these filters that provide orientation. And a great record label is a strong brand that helps its artists grow. And I think this is the most important function these days. They carefully select the people they work with, and they make sure they never disappoint their true fans. Now, this doesn't mean you should not start your own label, but I want you to do it for a reason. Do it because you want to build a brand and you want to collaborate with great talents and you want to provide a platform for their art. Starting a record label should not be only about your own music. And I've made a specific episode on starting a record label, so you can go and listen to that also. But all in all, I think we're living in a great time, in a great era where the gatekeeping function of labels doesn't play a role anymore, and artists are at eye level with labels. And we should try to collaborate as equal partners and grow together in today's music industry and rebuild it and rethink it and deliver as much value and as much great experiences as possible to our true fans together. So let's put this into action now. How can you use the new role of record labels to your advantage? First of all, action step number 1. Ask yourself what you expect from your relationship with the label. So sketch out the ideal partnership between you and the label. What can you offer them? What do you expect in return? How would your relationship look like on a human level also? Remember that these days we are at eye level with labels. They aren't gatekeepers anymore. You don't have to be shy. You can expect certain things, but also you want to see it as a collaboration. You want to add value to their artist roster overall. So think about how this whole circle, how this new economy within the music industry can work and what you can bring to the table there. Number 2, start compiling a list of labels that you feel would be a good fit for your music and also your artist personality. And you can go back to our episode on how to find the right label and start with the process of building relationships. This was the first step there. And map out which labels would be a great fit for you in the current stage of your artist career, but also have some future labels in mind once your artist career grows and gains some momentum. So at the beginning, you should always focus on labels that are more or less at your level. You shouldn't start out with thinking you can get signed to Afterlife. And some artists that I've worked with actually expect that. So they released just the very first tune ever, and they think they will get signed by Tale of Us on Afterlife. Not gonna happen, I'm sorry. Action step number 3, in case you want to start your own label, map out what it should stand for. So go back to our episode on starting a record label to kick things off, and then answer these questions. What type of brand should your ideal label represent? Who are the true fans of this label and what characterizes them? And what type of artists do you plan to sign to this label and how are you planning to find them? So all of these things are important to answer there. Okay, that's it for this episode. Now, I would love to hear from you. What do you think about the role of record labels today? About the change that has happened? So what do you think? Are they still relevant, or is it all about self-releasing music? So you can let me know in the comments of the blog post that comes with this episode. So go to pickyourselfpodcast.com. We have a very detailed blog post with all the links and everything. And I read all the comments. I answer every comment. So just go there. The other option is to just join our Facebook community, pickyourselfpodcast.com/community. We have a dedicated discussion thread for every single episode. And remember that I will do a live Q&A or Ask Me Anything session in our private Facebook community. So make sure you go there, make sure you enter your questions. I would love to have that discussion with you as some kind of direct interaction. This is something that I think I can add to your artist career right now in this strange time of Corona pandemic. So yeah, hope to see you there. If you want to take something away from this episode, go to pickyourselfpodcast.com/free and grab the 7 strategies of highly successful electronic music artists. It takes you just a couple of minutes to read, but it can really dramatically change the way you see things. So stay safe, stay healthy, and keep producing awesome music. I hope to see you again next week. If you don't want to miss any of the upcoming episodes, please make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And you can find detailed blog posts for every single episode on pickyourselfpodcast.com. Until then, see you next time.